Hi, I'm Aubrey Penny, a senior project manager and curatorial associate with Monument Lab. I'm a fat white woman with dark hair and a messy bun with oversized clear statement glasses, and I'm wearing an orange, green, and brown striped turtleneck, sitting in front of a bookcase that is slightly blurred behind me thanks to the powers of Zoom. Before we dive in, just a little bit of housekeeping regarding accessibility this evening. This session is being recorded and will be available online in the coming days. For those on camera, please keep your camera stable and turn them off when moving to accommodate participants with chronic dizziness. Whether you're on camera or not, please feel free to engage in ways that are comfortable for you, including taking breaks, eating and drinking, fidgeting as needed. You are people with bodies and needs first and foremost. Automated captioning will be available throughout the session, as well as automated language interpretation. Please let us know if you need help to turn this on. I will be describing the sound from tonight's presentations in the chat, and presenters will briefly describe themselves at the start of their presentations. Should you have any additional accessibility needs during the session, please reach out to me or to the Monument Lab account. Now, without further ado, I'm delighted to hand us over to Yolanda Wisher, Monument Lab Senior Curator, to get us started this evening.
Thank you, Aubrey, and welcome everybody. I'm Yolanda Wisher, Senior Curator at Monument Lab. I'm a fly Black woman in the black square-shaped glasses with dark brown natural hair, wearing a denim blue shirt. Behind me is a bookcase full of my favorite poetry, plays, autobiographies, and personal knickknacks. Monument Lab's public workshop series, presented with major support from the Mellon Foundation, centers artists, storytellers, educators, and grassroots organizers as drivers of change in public spaces. This series offers virtual and in-person opportunities for exploration and exchange around practices of commemoration, focusing on different topics throughout the year. Our last workshop, Cripping Monuments, took place in November 2024 and explored how disabled and chronically ill artists can reshape our understanding of monuments. We heard from artists Alexa Dexa, Johanna Hedva, and Finnegan Shannon, moderated by our own Aubrey Penny, who you met earlier. If you missed it, you can watch it on our YouTube channel via the link in the chat. I'm so glad you've joined us this evening to celebrate Black History Month through Music as Monument, a listening session and conversation with Black artists who use music and sound to create monumental moments and spaces and to encapsulate history, memory, and experience. I'm joined by four special guests tonight: Kendra Butler Waters, Mark Bamuthi Joseph, and Mendi and Keith Obadike. I can't imagine four more visionary artists to hear from in this moment. As a band leader, vocalist, and poet who performs, I'm grateful for the opportunity to explore with these gifted thinkers and artists how we might reimagine the notion and existence of monuments through music. In my mind and experience, monuments do not have to be silent or without voice. As we continue to reshape and reimagine the monument landscape of this country, the tools at our disposal, especially those in the sonic and performative realms, can stretch and expand the possibilities of what a monument can be and do. Our work at Monument Lab has given birth to several monuments involving sound and music, including Paul Ramirez Jonas's interactive bell tower, Let Freedom Ring, as part of the Pulling Together exhibition on the National Mall in DC, and Emeka Ogbo's mixed media sound installation, Logan Squared, Ode to Philly, featuring the epic words of beloved poet Ursula Rucker on the Skyline Terrace of the Free Library of Philadelphia. Tonight, the featured artist will share background information and excerpts from monumental music projects they have created as we explore more deeply how memory sounds and reverberates through public space. Now, to introduce my first guest and one of my favorite collaborators, Kendra Butler Waters. Kendra Butler Waters is a Philadelphia-based pianist, violinist, vocalist, composer, and educator. This multi-instrumentalist holds a dual bachelor's degree in political science and sociology from Temple University and a master's degree in elementary education from Drexel University. Kendra was the Kimmel Center's 2015-2016 Jazz Resident. Her original compositional work has been featured on NPR, WRTI, PBS, WHYY, and the LeVar Burton Reads Tour. She was also commissioned by the Philadelphia Academy of Fine Art and World Cafe Live for their American Artist series. Butler Waters was also commissioned by the Philadelphia-based collective Consensus to create a monumental score celebrating the contributions of Black femme poets in Philadelphia for Monument Lab's Regeneration Initiative. Most recently, Butler Waters completed From the Bottom to the Top, a score for a new permanent art installation in U City Square in West Philadelphia, created by architect and artist Nina Cook John. The project honors the rich and vibrant Black culture in West Philadelphia's Black Bottom neighborhood. Kendra's upcoming project, 8/8 Time, a compositional work for 4 pianos and 8 hands, created with 3 other composers and pianists and produced by Journey Arts, will premiere at Philadelphia's Mandel Theater in April 2025. Beyond the realm of music, Kendra is a 3rd grade teacher. Please welcome Kendra Butler Waters.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to Monument Lab, to Yolanda and Aubrey for having me this evening. I'm honored to be a part of this wonderful opportunity to share music as monument. I am, as mentioned, a 3rd grade educator. I'm a composer, pianist, violinist, and vocalist. I am an African American, thick drawn with curves, locks, brown eyes, wearing a Black turtleneck and beaded earrings from Kenya. I'm wearing gold rimmed glasses and a bright smile. I'm currently in my office surrounded by books, an 88 key weighted keyboard, pictures of my family, friends, and musicians. And on my window pane to my right is a sign that says sarcasm is welcome here. A little bit about the projects that I'll be talking about this evening. I will be focusing on the project that I did with Yolanda, 2 projects that I've done with Yolanda, the first being Consensus and the second being Ascendance, and the 2 scores that I created from those projects. So, me being a 3rd grade teacher, I love to provide context. And Yolanda did a beautiful job of already stating a little bit about structures, monuments as structures, and to connect to Consensus. The beauty of monuments demonstrates a historical importance and relevance to social groups as part of a remembrance of historic time or cultural heritage. And so, thinking about, to give you a little context regarding Consensus and the project, Consensus was a project that was developed by Yolanda Wisher and Trepida Mason. And they utilized this project to count, gather, and memorialize Black women and femme poets in Philadelphia. And it focuses on the past, the present, and future poets, Black women and femme poets from Philadelphia. So, to give you a little bit, I wanted to read part of a poem that Yolanda wrote that really connects to the compositional work that I developed for this particular project prior to explaining how uh, Sisterly Affection, which is the name of the score, how that was developed. So the poem goes as such. Sis, I saw you. They spoke, I speak. They wrote, I write. They composed, I compose. They rose, I am rising. We silently and loudly give permission to others to rise by our own stance. Their example is my mirror. I am the materialization of prayers sown. I am and will sow prayers for the mirrors of tomorrow. Sis, I see you. So when Yolanda and Tripita first approached me regarding the project in terms of having an accessible monument, developing a soundscape or a score, I asked them what were they really looking for in terms of the score itself. What message did you want to drive home as it related to Black women and femme poets from Philadelphia? And what they both wrote back was that they wanted to show past, present, and future Black women and femme poets. And it was particularly interesting during that time, primarily because the month of October, when the score was going to be premiered, was a time when Harriet Tubman escaped from slavery to Philadelphia. And also in that same month, Toni Morrison, of course, famed author of famed African American female author of Beloved and other literary works, was the first woman, Black woman, to win a Nobel Prize for Literature. So from that point on, I knew that I wanted to create a score that honored the past, the present, and the future of Black Philadelphia women. And so the I wrote the score in three parts. The first part honored the past, featuring um, quotes from Harriet Tubman. And one of the resounding parts of that, of one of her quotes, was "Hold steady on me," which you can hear throughout the thread of that particular part. And then the second part, which we'll actually hear an excerpt from, which is the present, I wanted to honor current Philadelphia poets and creators. I wanted to demonstrate Black American classical music, which we know as jazz, to represent the mix of our history from work songs to chants to Negro spirituals, traces of classical and blues, and the evolution of Black life in America through music. So, this particular piece within the present, um, the sound stamp that we'll hear this evening shows more of an interdisciplinary portrayal between poetry and music. And so, if we could cue that, this is movement two, called The Present, of the soundscape Sisterly Affection.
My sister was a sanctuary. My sister was a sanctuary. When she grabbed hold of her guitar, she made church. It was a baptism and laying on of hands. And there was a sermon in her fingers. Her playing was some kind of sacred oration, some kind of praise making in worship houses, some kind of religion we all wanted to belong to, wanted to run up to the altar, kneel and genuflect to, wanted to follow ushers and dip, sway, and swing our arms to. My sister was a trinity, mama, musician, and a whole movement. A sweet, sweet spirit she was, a sweet, sweet spirit she is. She gathered us. We gathered us, scattered, tender, and needing light, and only saw magic, and only spoke sweet incantations, words us sisters need to hear. We good, sister, we good, we good, we good, we good, sister.
So that particular clip, and along with some of the videos and the still pictures, those were actually from the release of the score. And what you saw in that particular clip was a choreographed dance that choreographer Jermaine Ingram developed in response to the score. So there was the music piece, and I'll go a little bit more into that before I move on into the next project. But the music piece was a tribute to um, one of our sheroes here in Philadelphia, Minette Sudler. Tripita actually wrote an excerpt of a poem that honored Manette, who unfortunately had passed prior to the release of the score. But the beauty of the music, the poetry, the dance showed that marriage of sisterhood, and I just wanted to portray that piece. Um, so looking at, I'm going to move on into the next project, which is Ascendance. And Ascendance was another project that I worked with Yolanda Wisher and artist, architect, visionary Nina Cook John. And the beauty of it was a landmark, a sculpture, part soundscape and poetry, where U City Square had contracted Yolanda and Nina to create this beautiful monument. And it's a permanent installation that honors the rich history and the people of Philadelphia's Black Bottom. And so the neighborhoods in Philadelphia's Black Bottom include Mantua, Powelton Village, Saunders Park, Belmont to Eastside, Parkside. And it's this really unique place in West Philadelphia that was used to honor, to reflect, to reference, and celebrate the heritage and culture that lives within Philadelphia's Black Bottom. And so the soundscape that they were looking for, there was two block parties that were a part of this particular project, and lots of collected interviews and sounds from the block parties, and just a wonderful opportunity for folks to fellowship, to talk, to eat, to collaborate. Yolanda developed poetry that was in response to um, the interviews and the experiences of the block parties. And so I took all of that sound, even down to the birds and the cars that were zooming by in the neighborhood, the conversations that were had, the double dutch that was played. All of that was a part of this soundscape that honored Philadelphia's Black Bottom. And so for the soundscape, it's about 20, wa- 23 minutes long. And what I wanted to do is to demonstrate or highlight each of the interviews that were collected as a part of the project. And uniquely, each of the interviews were from a different decade. Each person represented a different decade of Black life in Philadelphia's Black Bottom. So I transformed that into developing 6 different pieces that were a part of a larger score. And I love to do period pieces that honor not only the richness and the history of a particular place, but also that time in music. So the entire score was developed from each piece chronicles from the 1960s to the 2000s. So the first piece is from the 1960s, second from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. The piece that we're going to hear this evening is actually the sixth song that was a part of the larger score, called From the Bottom to the Top. It honors the early 2000s sound. In creating the score, I really did a deep dive, not only into the history of the community and the people, and how that community has transformed over time, but also understanding what was Black music during that time, each one of those decades, and how can I honor that in the compositional work that I developed. So what you'll hear is a mix of poetry. For each of these pieces, for Consensus and Ascendance, it was all live music. So, for this particular piece, I had a 9-piece band. I played keys and sang. I had Yolanda sing and read poetry. I had drums and 3 different horn players. There was some electronic elements, which you may hear in this particular excerpt. Um, but I wanted to demonstrate the symbiotic relationship between music, poetry, and MC. You'll hear some of that, the hip hop element as well, to make it accessible, which I think is awesome. So if we could cue from the bottom to the top, that would be great.
We say Black Bottom, Nice Town, Uptown. We say the Platte, the Stoop, the Hood, the Grub. We say Broad and Child, please, or Shelton and check yourself. This be humble, extraordinary ratchet in secret places. They like to call us the underdog, but we smooth sailing hawks, way up above Forbidden Drive, looking for the next drift to joy and revolution.
Sorry, I was over here jamming. But that excerpt kind of gives you, along with the pictures, those were some of the pictures from the structure, which I feel like pictures don't even do it justice in terms of the massiveness and how much it honors that community, which, over the last few decades has really evolved and changed, in such that there's several universities that are there and students that come, move in and move out, and it changes the trajectory of the community. Um, and honoring that community and having that community honored in a permanent installation that interweaves both structure, poetry, words, and sound, is a wonderful way, of monument. I just think it's something that's accessible to the community, especially for those. There's a lot of students that live in that particular area and don't necessarily know the history of that particular community. And having that structure, even if it's a matter of them being able to read the words or see the structure or listen to um, the score that honors the people in that community, is so important. And to have the opportunity to create, um, is a wonderful way of honoring music as monument. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Kendra. Thank you for that trip down memory lane. And
Yes.
it's always, I wanted to start this off close to home in Philly with an extraordinary artist that you are, and always looking forward to the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now on to introduce our next guest. And I'll just remind you, if you have questions already, please use the Q&A function, and we'll collect them as we move to our conversation at the end of the presentations. So our next guest, really excited to have him here with us tonight, Mark Bamuthi Joseph. Mark Bamuthi Joseph is a 2017 TED Global Fellow, an inaugural recipient of the Guggenheim Social Practice Initiative, a 2023 Emerson Collective Dial Fellow, and an honoree of the United States Artist Rockefeller Fellowship. He is also the winner of the 2011 Herb Alpert Award in Theater and an inaugural recipient of the Doris Duke Performing Artist Award. Bamuthi has most recently completed commissions for Yale University, the Albany Symphony Orchestra, the Minnesota Orchestra, the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, and the Washington National Opera. In the spring of 2025, his collaborative Gospel Mass with Carlos Simon will premiere at the Los Angeles Philharmonic, conducted by Gustavo Dudamel. His collaboration with the New York City Ballet Associate Artistic Director Wendy Whalen was commissioned by Lincoln Center and premiered in 2024 during his residency at the Meany Center at the University of Washington. He currently serves as the Vice President of Social Impact and Artistic Director of Cultural Strategy at the Kennedy Center. Please welcome Mark Bamuthi Joseph.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Greetings to everyone. My name is Bamuthi. I am Anmagi Deltor's grandson. I'm Akai Rising's father. My people come from the unceded territory of the Taino, which is presently known as Haiti. I am a man with chocolate brown skin, bald head, and a full beard that is mostly black, except all the hair on my chin, which is gray. It is winter here, but I am dressed like autumn, hella earth tones, a brownish gold cardigan, an orange plaid shirt layered over a light brown t-shirt. And I am sitting in my office and the background is blurred. Um, I'm tripping because the last line in the biography that Yolanda just read is my fairly lengthy title at the Kennedy Center, and today the President of the United States ascended himself to be chair of the Board of Trustees at the Kennedy Center. So I don't know how much longer I might have that job. And I think that that's probably a fitting context for what I'm going to share today. Um, for the last 25 years, I made a living writing everything from poems in Oakland to operas in Amsterdam. Living in DC has made me obsessed with forgiving and also with forgetting. Um, Forgiving requires a deeply personal commitment to heal, but forgiveness is also a political animal. Like, how do I, as a citizen, forgive what happened on January 6th? Or how do I reconcile what feels like a national injustice, which is that since the pandemic, through the jungle of managing a national trauma in public health, we still haven't given much focused attention to public healing, which leads me to forgetting. It seems when you start banning books in a country, you're asking us all to forget a bunch of things. Historical erasure is how forgetting happens in a systemic way, but forgetting also happens through the medium of disputed realities or disinformation, through a culture that presents multiple options of facts. Says maybe it was a riot, or maybe it was a feral tour of a federal building, as if we should all forget the memory of what we actually saw. So I've started making work that asks, is it possible to both remember and forgive? And let's say we can remember and forgive, how does art make that possible? Um, my job at the Kennedy Center is not social passivity, it is social impact. People ask me all the time, what can art do to help create an equitable society? But that's the wrong question. It puts the onus on the wrong people. The actual question is, why aren't our healthcare systems more like music? Or why doesn't our political apparatus operate more like the flow of a poem? Or maybe how do we lift the stock of art that creates an infrastructure for both remembrance and forgiveness? Um, so while I was chasing these questions, I came upon a classical composition called Carnival of the Animals by Saint-Saëns. Historically, Carnival of the Animals is a series of 14 mini suites, each inspired by a different being in the animal kingdom. If you've seen Harry Potter or like ever seen a United commercial, you've heard the music. Um, our version features a mix of Saint-Saëns' work, new compositions by a woman named Sugar Vendille, and also a series of a cappella moments, which ask a different sets of questions. It asks, what if the Carnival of the Animals was set in the Capitol building on January 6th? Who in the animal kingdom was present on that day? It considers the question of whether our democracy can survive if we don't manufacture the empathy it takes to forgive. This country uses alloys to manufacture cars. We use brick to construct houses. Can we use art to manufacture empathy as an intentional aspect of our economy? Um, I'm going to share an example with you, and that example is our version of the cuckoo. Now, the carnival premiered in 2024, which was an election year where one of the presidential candidates had been indicted in federal court for their role in a riot on the Capitol. That said, the cuckoo is not about crazy, it is about cycles. It's a moment in our show that remembers the toxic cycles that led us to January 6th. It's a piece that asks how we forgive the actors of chaos if we don't remember the cycles of inaction that propagated them. The whole show Carnival is a parable about structure, structured in parallels about animals. And the excerpt that I'm about to show you, or we're about to show you, brings one of those animals to life. So, as a monument to forgiveness, as a monument to democracy, uh, I want to share the cuckoo. Uh, let's go ahead and share this clip.
Somewhere around 2:30, maybe 2:45, my mom texts me to ask me if I'm safe. That's a lie. I texted her to ask if she was okay. My mom is from Haiti. She's seen this before. A riot, a coup, a despot, his crew. My mom raised a democracy hunter, a gunner, clear and present to the danger. I ask her if she's triggered. She's seen this before. The cuckoo flies above, and after a while falls slowly to the earth. It has a slight speech impediment. The human ear thinks it's called repetitive. The human ear thinks it's called repetitive, as if humans could be the arbiters of another species' song, though in this case, the human ear is not wrong. The cuckoo repeats itself, like each leaf on the branch upon which he perches is a rosary bead or a Tibetan mala. The human ear doesn't hear the slender bird's prayer. No matter. She attends to other concerns, laying eggs in other birds' nests, eating insects, learning French. Le coucou vole en haut, et après un instant, elle tombe doucement par terre. Because her mantras strike the ear as monotonous drone, humans clone her tone in their clocks. The hour comes, like clockwork, the song that we recognize as time does not stop. The cuckoo is no yeoman laborer, singing like the incessant swinging of a mountain sculptor's chisel. Her song is less relentless work and more incessant prayer. Humans think her crazy, repeating herself, repeating herself. They use her name in pejorative vein, call each other out by slurring the sound of cuckoo, cuckoo, expanding her striped feathered chest and giving the sky her mouth. Cuckoo comes in many colors, mad styles. Got family in the tropics and Europe. Unrequited love on a North Pacific island. And for the record, plot fabricators and American gift makers, she is not simple-brained. She happened to be outside the window when George Santayama coined the aphorism that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, condemned to repeat it. She's been there for trickle-down economics, for TV personalities running for public office, for athletes rapping, for European peace treaties with Native people, and for 14 different ends to the COVID-19 pandemic. Remember the past, remember cuckoo. Cuckoo. Matter of fact, she's noticed that in the cyclical strain on the infrastructure of public health, there isn't very much attention being paid to public healing. Like the act of intentionally and collectively acknowledging the social and psychological trauma of loss and divisiveness, acknowledging that the planet has endured a rift and intentionally healing together from that rift in public healing. Cuckoo. Repeating the hand on the automatic rifle, mediocre and entitled, tantalizingly bland, middle-class white supremacist, disconnected white man is on the premises, American terrorists thinking and praying like American senators or American Second Amendment defenders, neglecting the context of the weapons that the framers were suggesting. They was talking about muskets, yo. They was talking about muskets, you know. The cuckoo repeats herself. The cuckoo flies above. And after a while, falls slowly to the earth. Cuckoo. Cuckoo. Cuckoo.
Thank you all for checking out that excerpt. Um, these are tenuous times. And it occurs to me that in this month, as we reference our ancestors and their resilience, that it has never been more urgent to move with the example of those who resisted, those who persevered, and those who told the truth in the cowardly face of the liars among us. So, hopefully, prayerfully, the poem that we just shared does resonate to you all as music, but also as a monument to um, the kind of spirit and spiritual foundation that we'll all need to lean on as democracy gasps these very fragile breaths. Thanks for your time. I'll pass it back to Yolanda.
Thank you, Bamuti. And forgive me for not putting together your vibes when you joined us on the call tonight with the news of today. Just sending you a lot of love and a lot of admiration for your presence here tonight on such a heavy day. and your bravery and your truth telling and your work in your personal life. Appreciate that. And now I'm going to introduce our final featured guest for this evening, and then we'll jump into a brief conversation. There's also time for your questions, so please feel free to add them to the Q&A. We're collecting them and definitely will share them. Our final guests for this evening are longtime favorites of mine, Mendi and Keith Obadike. Mendi and Keith Obadike create work at the intersection of art, music, and language, drawing on histories of experimental media, art, and performance. Since their early collaborations on internet-based artworks in the late 1990s, they have exhibited and performed at institutions, including the New Museum, the Studio Museum in Harlem, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the Museum of Modern Art. Their projects include large-scale public sound installations, such as Blues Speaker for James Baldwin at the New School, Compass Song for Times Square Arts, Free Phase at the Chicago Cultural Center and Rebuild Foundation, and The Bell Rang at Mills College in Oakland. Their recent works include Anyanwu and Book of Light, commissioned by Carnegie Mellon University, Lull, a sleep temple, an 8-hour overnight musical work, and The Sun. Notable museum exhibitions include Electronic Superhighway at the Whitechapel Gallery, I Was Raised on the Internet at the Museum of Contemporary Art Chicago, and programmed Rules, Codes, and Choreographies in Art at the Whitney Museum. Currently, they are developing BLKBX, an ongoing AI project, and Slow Drag, a multi-city public sound installation. Recipients of a Rockefeller New Media Arts Fellowship and the Lewis Comfort Tiny Biennial Award, Mendi and Keith are professors at Cornell University and serve on the boards of the digital arts organization Rhizome and the Vera List Center for Art and Politics. Please welcome Mendi and Keith Obadike.
Hi. Thank you, Yolanda, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you for all the work you've done for this. Thank you also to Aubrey, JG, and to the other presenters tonight, Kendra and Bamuthi. It's been wonderful to hear about your work.
Yeah, we're honored to be here with you. We've known your work from afar, so it's really fantastic to be in the Zoom room with you tonight.
Yes, I am Mendi. I'm a Black woman wearing a yellow blouse, yellow earrings, and yellow glasses to remind myself to extend the rays of the sun. Mm-hmm. I have red lipstick. My natural hair is braided and pulled away from my face.
I'm Keith. I'm an African man. I look very chocolate. My head is kind of oval, and I'm wearing a red shirt. All right. So we're going to talk about, I think, 2 projects tonight. So we've been working together for past 29 years. As Yolanda mentioned, our projects have taken many forms over the years. These days, we do a lot of public sound installations, performances. We work in communities. We make some sculptural objects, and we collaborate with many other artists. In our works, we've been particularly interested in the power of listening. We are interested in how sound articulates space. And by that, we mean both architectural space and social space.
Mm-hmm. Over time, we've made works that explores this idea through different means. And a few of them are by employing strategies for activating archives, by resonating structures, by reordering and reorienting language, and by sonifying and reperforming data.
And our practice is rooted in the richness of African and African-American culture. And across many of our works, we've used this as a lens, an organizing principle. We've used Igbo proverbs, folk songs, and folk tales from the African diaspora and spirituals from the Black American tradition. These things function as cultural markers, but they also operate as formal elements in the work.
Mhm. So the first project we're going to show is called The Bell Rang. It's part of a series of projects that we call tonotypes. Um, tonotypes are sound installations that invite meditation on sonic language or language that invokes sound and therefore a practice of listening. The Bell Rang is music with projected text. The music consists of bell sounds and voices slowly singing the projected text, and the text is projected on the Mills College bell tower, which is called El Campanile. The text comes from the autobiography of Congresswoman and Mills College alum, Barbara Lee.
Yeah, so Barbara Lee had the sole vote against the broad authorization for presidential power for military force after 9/11. So she was the sole vote against that authorization. And the text that we pulled from her autobiography read, "The bell rang, votes were cast, and the board was full of green lights. There was only one red one." So that's a little bit of context for the piece. And I don't know if you, so we did the piece in 2021 in Oakland. So we'll show a bit of that, and then we'll talk about another piece. So if we could play the video, The Bell Rang. So as we mentioned, that piece was from 2021. And then we're going to talk about a more recent work. This is a piece called Slow Drag. And we originally did Slow Drag in 2023 in St. Louis, in the St. Louis Place neighborhood, St. Louis Place Park. And it was commissioned by an organization called Counterpublic, or the Counterpublic Triennial. So Slow Drag is we call it a mobile sound installation, right? So it's a procession of cars that drive around the community. And so there are several parts of the project. You know, in the project, we work with local musicians. In this case, in St. Louis, we work.
We should start with a song we wrote, though.
Okay.
Well, we wrote a song together called Joy in Everything, and it itself was a response to a blues song called Joy, called Sweet. What's the name of that song? Black Angel Blues.
Yeah. Yeah, so we wrote a song in response to Black Angel Blues. Black Angel Blues is a song from the 1930s written by Lucille Bogan. So we responded to that, and we worked with a number of local hip hop producers in St. Louis to remix our song. So we basically, we made a sketch of our song with a number of musicians through a local hip hop producer named Mastermind. He gathered, 10 other producers to remix this. And then we reached out to a lot of car clubs in St. Louis, people with great sound systems and custom cars. And we mapped a route around the community. And so the idea, we've made sound installations for a long time in museum and gallery context and in public context. But we really wanted to think about how do we use sound to wrap a place. In this case, how do we wrap a community in a love song? And so it's a love song that, yes, in some ways we're starting, but we're making it in dialogue with the community and with musicians who live in the area. And so we will show you a bit of that, and then maybe we can say a little bit more about the broader ideas. Mm-hmm. So if we could play the video from Slow Drag, please. This video is about 3 minutes long, 3.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. We get a little glitch there.
Slow Drag is a sound installation consisting of cars moving through the St. Louis Place neighborhood, playing numerous simultaneous remixes of a song created by Mindy and Keith Obadike. Rooted in associations of the intimate slow drag dance form, it has persisted from the early blues through to contemporary hip-hop and R&B.
Working with Mindy and Keith, that was just really smooth to me, working in tandem with this couple who has real true intentions on legacy building with art.
Slow drags carry resonance in St. Louis through their popularization by Scott Joplin in his early rags, or piano pieces.
We're artists and musicians. Slow Drag is a procession of cars playing music. It's a mobile sound installation. A lot of our work is about creating situations for the public to listen together.
Where we're from, there's an overlap between the music and the cars, and we really wanted to make that connection.
We decided that what we'd like to do is wrap the community in a slow love song.
So we think about it as like a kind of sonic embrace. We wrote a slow love song called Joy in Everything. We're inspired by this song called Black Angel Blues, and Mastermind invited a group of people to remix it.
I put out a big call for producers. We had 120 submission of folks, and it was really hard narrowing down what artist is going to execute this challenge, so that when you hear it, it's not just knocking upside your head, but it's still that smooth sound, but it feels big.
I wanted to convey the Cloud9 kind of feeling, like when a love is fresh, when a love is sweet, and to literally and figuratively wrap the city in love and give it a love song. I really think that that's unique.
The work was performed by dozens of cars with custom speakers rooted in sound system culture. Their sonic procession relied on the shape and form of the neighborhood to determine the route. The sound installation places a cacophony of sound prominently in public, resisting the silencing and policing of public space.
It was really special. The art in itself wasn't necessarily done as soon as people arrive on site. It took a bunch of unified involvement at a particular time and a particular location with the executed route. We took 50 cars and we rapped St. Louis Park Place neighborhood in loud, bro. Good music, good energy. All the cars are playing the same music at the same time.
Bring us some smile.
Good. That's what it's about.
I think it was great. I had so much fun.
Enjoyed ourselves today.
I pray now.
Makes everything right.
So it's a little bit of slow drag in St. Louis.
So we were able to do Slow Drag again in Seattle last year in 2024. And we did that with an organization called Wanawari, who has a festival called Walk the Block. So we did it at Walk the Block there.
And that's in historic Black neighborhood in Seattle, in the Central District in Seattle. And this year we're working on slow drag in Philadelphia. So we're working with Scribe Video Center in Philadelphia and planning a slow drag in North Philadelphia. So look out for that.
Yeah. We want to say that?
No, go ahead.
We'll stop there, but we'll have more conversation as the night continues.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mendy and Keith. And I'll invite all of my panelists to join me back here on screen. The way my jaw just dropped when you said slow drag was going to be in Philadelphia, in North Philly, I was like, what? I can't wait. I can't wait. Wow. Thank you all for your intriguing, very different presentations. I have a few questions, but I also want to prompt the audience listening to send us some questions through the Q&A that you want to ask our panelists. And I also invite y'all to ask each other questions too, if any of you would like to do that. My first question is, who or what are the biggest inspirations or influences for your work as artists when it comes to music, sound, or poetry?
Well, there are a lot of answers for that, but there was somebody that we meant to mention tonight. A lot of our work is thinking about what it means to go out into what it means to take the sound into public spaces and to really bring the culture forth that way as a tool for remembering lots of things, musical gestures, but also temporal information, intellectual tradition, all of that is held in the music. And we think of a quote from Bernice Johnson Reagan, who has so many things for us in this moment. But one of the things she said that we think about a lot is that sound is a way to extend the territory that you can affect. And so we have really come back to that over and over again.
Love that. Thank you. Bamuti Kendra?
Yeah, I'll invoke the name of our ancestor, Toni Morrison, who was an assassin. Her pen was a blade. But I will also invoke Black thought of the Roots and Nas and Lauryn Hill and Doechii and Kendrick Lamar. The musicality, the combination of musicality and meaning in hip hop driven poets definitely meant and means a lot to me as a poet who often moves to my own words, making music of words. It's extraordinarily important, but also making sure that meaning itself is musical is part of a lineage that I hope to carry on. So I would say the very long lineage of hip hop lyricists, as well as poets like Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni, poets of the Black arts movement, that were so foundational for so many of us.
For sure. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I would say for me, intertwining the thread of like Black gospel, the roots of our of the Negro spiritual, the history of the Negro spiritual, adding that um into the thread of all of my music. I'll throw an organ on something real quick, and that's that, or a tambourine, or using sounds of the past to thread through the future. To me, I think history is very cyclical. So our experience, what we're going through now, has already happened years ago. Usually things, experiences of difficulty help to birth a lot of triumph. So I think that is an important piece, especially when creating bodies of work or compositional works. All of that, is through the thread of the creative process.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you all for those responses. Building off of something Bamuti mentioned in his presentation about listening. Um, I think about listening as a deeply empathetic, creative, political act. And I'm wondering, what does listening mean to each of you, and what does it require of us to listen together?
I might begin, if it's okay with you, Keith, just by naming energetic reciprocity as a concept and framework for um, Black ways, not just Black music, but who and how we are. Um, More than call and response, which feels like a, a binary kind of um, dynamic. Energetic reciprocity is giving and surrendering. Energetic reciprocity is an act of both generosity and humility that literally raises a vibration between individuals or between groups. So I think a commitment to listening truly is a commitment to raising the vibration in through silent or tacit behavior. But listening and hearing, this is like a Denzel Washington and Mo Better Blues moment, but there's a difference between hearing and listening. This is Wesley Snipes and Mo Better Blues. The difference between hearing and listening in this case, not waiting patiently or impatiently for till it's your turn to speak. That might be hearing. Listening, I think, is more of an access of the framework that I just raised. Listening is a reciprocal act.
Mm-hmm. You just cued my rewatch of Mo Better Blues up right now. So it's been a while.
It kind of holds up, but enough of it does that it's worth the rewatch.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But Yolanda, was your question like, what does was part of your question, what does listening require?
Yeah, what does listening together, what does it require of us to listen together?
I think it requires trust, and I think you said another part of it, which is creativity. I mean, the best listening is creative, and a lot of our projects, we're trying to create platforms for communal listening. So yeah, I think an important part of that is trust. To really listen, we have to feel comfortable and open, and that allows the real sort of creative act and the sort of full body, full spirit listening to happen. Yeah.
Kendra? Mindy?
I do have something to say. I was thinking about a couple of different moments where something surprising happened to me listening. And I won't go into all of them, but some of them have happened in like situations that Keith and I have set up, and then something happened that I didn't know was going to happen. You know, I learned something, or someone said something, I heard something in the way someone said something that I wasn't thinking about, and I felt changed by it. Not just, oh, I didn't know that, but oh, that requires something else of me now that I do. And so I was really interested in the ability to, like, that felt like really private, because although it's something that was a public project, I don't know how other people heard it, but I learned it was a surprise to me because I made the project, you know. And I think about other times when we're playing music with people and someone, I can tell that they're listening to me because of what they do that I didn't know they were going to do. And how wonderful that feels to be held, you know, like for someone to reach out to you in, you know, in that way. And I was like, does everybody hear that? I hear what that means, you know? So I feel like those experiences and experiences like that have invited me to listen more closely, more deeply, to hear when someone is reaching for me, to try to reach for other people. And I'm teaching a class on listening right now. One of my students said something that made me say, maybe we don't just listen to music, maybe we music to listen, you know? And what I meant was, like, in listening to what some of my students were saying, it made me realize that maybe this whole thing of, you know, making sound together, making it beautiful or making it provocative is really, among all the other things, an opportunity for just us to keep our ears open, you know, and to keep learning in that way and to keep relating to each other in that way.
I'll just tag on that. I think listening allows an opportunity for vulnerability, because, you know, the pieces that we create, not only are we being vulnerable with those who are hearing, but the hearers are also being vulnerable in terms of how they're interpreting what we create. And so I think, like recently, I had a work in progress session for the 8/8 Time Project, and um, it was interesting to hear the feedback of them listening to the ebbs and flows of the music, the periods of time and space, the key changes, or you know, the dynamics of the pieces that we created and how it affected everyone differently. And so I think, you know, it allows vulnerability for the hearer to connect with your music in a way that either you intended or didn't intend.
All of y'all's work seems to reinscribe and expand notions of public space and discourse. Can you share some of the highlights and the challenges you've encountered working with or creating sound in public spaces? I saw that smile, Pamuti. little smirk. There's definitely, I've definitely experienced some of my own, but I'd love to hear how y'all, what some of yours are.
I would say, you know, the highlights and challenges go hand in hand in that, you know, when you're dealing with public space and people, like, you never know what's going to happen, and that's why it's interesting, right? People kind of bring their own experience to whatever you're doing, and so you can plan as much as you want, but there are always kind of new things happening when you're putting something in public space. And with the kind of work we do, you know, because sometimes we're making objects, or sometimes, you know, things are pre-recorded. there's a limit to how much we can improvise, but we have to build in chance, and we have to build in like human moments into the work, so that when people do bring themselves to it, somehow that there's space for the work to shift, space for the public to step in. So that's the challenge of making work for public, that you're dealing with human beings and public space. That's the beauty of it. That's the whole reason to do it. Yeah.
It's a very loving notion to leave space for people to be human in the work. I don't think all artists approach making art in that way. Anybody else? Okay. All right.
Andrew, sis, I'm trying to leave space for you, sis. Get in, girl.
No, I take time to reflect on your question. Can you just repeat the question again?
Sure. Can you share some of the highlights or the challenges you've encountered working with or creating sound for public spaces?
Yeah, I would say for the Consensus Project, when I got the call, you were like, hey, you got 2 weeks and it has to be 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I was the challenge. It was me. Okay.
No. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to organize multiple things in a time constraint, figure out music, write out scores, coordinate musicians, book a studio to record, get it mixed and mastered, and get it to you immediately. So I think having those pieces that can be a little overwhelming. So I just went into my prayer room and was like, Lord, you're gonna have to walk me through this. And so, I think me developing as a composer, as an artist, that I really rely on just having prayer in times of quiet first. And I think, it connects to your previous question about listening, because a lot of my best writing comes at night when it's quiet. I have 2 young children, when they're asleep, all of that, just having quiet and just listening and being still. I think those are some of the best times for me personally, where all of this stuff just comes rushing out once I take time to just be quiet and pray and center and reflect really on what is the centrality of the project that I'm trying to create, and how can I honor what whatever the subject matter or the topic, how can I best honor that through music? And so I think some of the fear may come in terms of just natural humanity, like, how am I going to create this? I might be on a time constraint, whether that means in terms of finishing the project or the project has a constraint in terms of time. How can I express everything that needs to be expressed through this project genuinely, that, yeah. So I would say the highlight is really providing it to the public and getting their feedback. Another highlight is just creating it, writing the music, listening to the instrumentalist and the vocalist and the MC or whoever I have a part of the project actually understand the assignment and execute it the way that I hear it in my mind. And just I think that's one of the biggest highs, is just seeing it all come together.
Bamuti, you want some of this one?
I think it's been said. I
Okay.
think it's been said. Yeah.
I want to just give the audience a shout, because I'm almost finished my questions. So if you got a question, throw it in the Q&A. And then I'm gonna, I'm gonna share one question and then I'll share a Q&A question and then I'll share my final question. Um, my next question is the monument question. Because music is monument. That's our theme tonight. And a lot of what these workshops are about is learning for us at Monument Lab about what is the future of monuments and what shape will they be taking and what do we need to be thinking about to prepare ourselves for that. So I'm wondering from y'all, how do you see music shaping or even challenging the traditional idea of what a monument is or can be? And if you look ahead, what do you think of as the future of music or sound or even poetry, which is something I love to think about in public space? Where are we going?
Where are we going?
There's a lot of ways that there are kind of sort of principles in our work that connect to that question. Like one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, and that Keith and I've been talking about a lot, is about what it means to work with material forms and immaterial. So like, well, with, to think about something that is ephemeral like music as a monument is interesting for a lot of reasons, one of which is that we think of monuments as having a material form. But, we've been talking a lot about how in any kind of art form, even if it is a material object, what really makes it art is not the material, but the spirit, and the spirit it coheres to materials, but the material is not the thing, it is just like it is a way, material is a way of giving our attention to where the spirit is, so for me, music can be a monument because really that's what we're always getting at, is this thing that's extra, sometimes invisible, but also sometimes felt, even though it's not necessarily material. And you can make musical monuments with materials. You can make them with things that are invisible and intangible. Also, to me, it's all working with the same kind of stuff.
To tag onto that, I would say that, one reason as we're introducing our projects, we talk about the fact that, our work is specifically grounded in African diaspora cultures. And we talk about African American culture specifically. And so the reason for that is, in this culture specifically, we have a tradition of building our monuments through sound. Some of it we've done out of necessity, right? Because other kind of materials were not made available to us. Public space, we've been barred from public space. And so we've got a long practice of building our monuments in sound. And so, we're fortunate to be able to choose this practice. But some people, this was what they had to do. And so a lot of our work is about investigating, like, what have we done, over the past couple of centuries? What kind of structures have we built and what have we embedded in those structures? We're talking about sonic structures, right? So what's embedded in the music? What's embedded in the musical structure, in the text that's used in our music? And what can we pull out of that and present it in spaces where we are used to thinking about monuments, objects, and material? So part of the contention here is that, sound is a material. It might be an invisible material, but sound is a material. And what is embedded in our sonic inheritance, and how can we present that in a way that the public can deal with it?
And just for the poetry question, that's not separate for us, from the music. That in our tradition, those things go together.
Thank you.
What I might contribute to the question is an experience that I'm currently having in Richmond, Virginia, which, Richmond, Charleston, New Orleans, three major American cities who all of which were built through the economy of trafficking Black bodies. Richmond is also the home of the Confederacy and also the current capital of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it has a very rich um, and fraught history, which in 2020 became extraordinarily visible as all these different statues on what they called Monument Avenue started coming down. These were monuments to Confederate heroes. And I started working at the University of Richmond because they discovered, or at least publicly admitted in that same year, that um, that some of their campus was built on an African burial ground. So underneath the idea of structural monuments is the idea of memorialization, what it is that we choose to remember, and what the ephemera or artifacts of memory are. I've started to meet with folks all over Richmond, and there are these 6 themes that have emerged. The first theme is the past and history are not the same things. The second thing, we owe one another the consecration of memory. The third theme is the water remembers. The fourth theme is the father of folklore is fact. The fifth theme is the truth hurts more under the tongue than out in the open. And the sixth theme is erasure is a motherfucker, yo. This last theme, relative to monuments, erasure, is something that is so painfully close to me right now. And when you use the word monument, I think about, how do I remember? Some of how I remember is specifically through my Personal Joy mixtape, where what was playing when I had that slow dance in 8th grade. Shout out to Keith Sweat. What was playing when I met my soulmate. These kinds of things. So music and language, these are the monuments that cannot be erased. When you knock down a building, when you deface a mural, when you paint over principles in the FBI building, when you rip up the Constitution, there will be Stevie Wonder. There will be there will be these line dances. There will be these memories, and the memories become the monuments, and the material is melody.
All right, poetry.
Yes.
That's really deep. And I was listening as you were talking, you were saying memory is monument, and part of that memory, one of those threads is definitely music. And as I was looking through one of the Q&A questions, as an educator, and in the district that I'm in, I teach in a predominantly white district, and the district that I'm serving in right now, myself and another educator are the only 2 Black educators in the building. And I only share that because right now we're in the middle of an interesting time, of course. But since I've been in this particular district that I'm serving in, I've brought a lot of cultural capital, if that makes any sense. So every year I conduct an assembly, and the assembly for the last 3 to 4 years have been surrounded around jazz and the African American experience. And so I'll bring musicians from Philly in, and we'll, host, um, we'll play, songs from African American folk songs. Um, we'll also do, traditional songs from the Real Book, which is a collection of jazz standards. In addition to creating works or playing works from rhythm and blues, and just trying to show the trajectory of Black music, and just listening for students to have the opportunity to listen to that they are being exposed to monuments of soundscape, and seeing Black folks come in and play these instruments where otherwise they may not have had some of those experiences. That just listening to what you said, Bamuti, about memories and soundscape, and how that is all a part of um, monument making, that monuments impact, generations, and monuments are, at the centrality of change. And so I appreciate you saying that, because just making that connection as an educator and musician, that I didn't think of it, like, I knew obviously there's purpose behind it, but to the depth of it in terms of monument making was a heavy thought to make that connection.
Whew, okay. I think in the interest of time, I'm gonna leave it there. Kendra, you addressed the question in the Q&A. I really appreciate that. And I just want to say Aubrey and I have been in our chat talking about just how much reverence and sanctity and sacredness y'all bring to this work, and how deeply I appreciate that. And to be in community with all of y'all on this call has been uplifting at we keep saying an interesting time, but it's an effed up time, in a lot of other ways. And I think having these kinds of gatherings and conversations is a balm in an effed up time. So I appreciate each of y'all for making time for this tonight, and bringing your hearts to this, and sharing your visionary ideas with all of us. So thank you to Kendra Butler Waters, Mark Bamuti Joseph, Mendy and Keith Obadike. And thank you to everyone who offered questions in your presence tonight. I'd also like to shout out Aubrey Penny, Justin J.G. Keller, Geller, Cleary, and the entire Monument Lab team for their help with this event. Special thanks to the Mellon Foundation for its support of this program and the public workshop series. I'm going to also offer a few parting gifts before everybody leaves out. In the coming weeks, we'll be sharing clips from this event on social media. Each public workshop we've done has been accompanied by a musical playlist. And this time we commissioned DJ Little Dave, a Philadelphia-based producer, composer, radio host, to curate a music playlist based on the themes of this event. It's a really dope playlist. It's on Spotify. Go get it. Get your life. Shout out to Little Dave for crafting the brilliant mix, and spending time with the work of each of our presenters tonight to generate it. And there's no need to sweat saving the links right now. If you registered for this and you're here tonight, you'll receive an email from Monument Lab that includes links to our YouTube page, the playlist, and also a short survey we'd love for you to fill out, just to take a few minutes with this QR code that'll link you. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes for you to respond to the survey. And in the spirit of learning, it helps us to learn as an organization how we can do these workshops in a way that serves you. And as a poet, I'm going to close out with a poem, not by me, but by Kevin Simmons, in honor of the sublime opera singer, ancestor Leontine Price, who was born just 2 days ago on February 10th, 1927. America, I couldn't have sounded like this anywhere else. grooves cut down to bone, a terror, a reprieve. I constitute an order through sound men imagine but could never make. What you hear is an other matter, yes, technique as ladder, but already the summit of my sound. Thank you, Bamuti, Bendy, Keith, Kendra, all of you out there. Thank you for being here and with us. Peace.
Peace.
Yolanda. Thank you.
Respect y'all.
Yeah.